You're listening to Bro Down Podcast all fucking day. Oh, yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Bro Down Podcast. I'm Andy Smith.
I'm Tim Fulton.
And this is What Do You Got?
What do you got?
What Do You Got's where one of us brings a subject to the table and the other one doesn't know about it until we start recording. So, Tim's turn.
And I usually like to rile Andy up a little bit.
Oh, great.
So today's topic, MMA stupid, changed my mind. You see those memes, right?
You douchebag.
You see those memes.
Where the guy's sitting with a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
Okay, so how about this? Can you give me some common reasons why people say that it's stupid and I will rebuttal? Or do you just want me to just...
We can take this whichever angle you want to do. You can either try to convince a layman, pretend like I'm someone who does not like MMA. Do you want me to tell you why, or do you just want to give emphasis to the sport?
It's easier if you give me a reason why, because then I can try to change your mind based on that. But as a whole, there's so many things that I feel like I would just be rambling about.
Part of me likes that.
Like Slayer is the best band, bro. Like that kind of shit.
Okay.
So give me some things that you've heard people say why it's stupid or why it's human cockfighting or whatever.
You would think I'd be more prepared for that.
I would think. You've been bragging about having a topic for the last 3 years.
It's brutal.
It's brutal. Okay. Do you like any other sports?
I like football.
Okay. Do you think that that's less brutal than MMA?
Significantly.
Okay. For what reason?
Because the point of MMA is literally to hurt each other.
Okay. So in football, you have guys that are smashing into each other for 2.5 hours.
Okay.
Helmet to helmet, on the line. Guys are getting injured left and right. They don't last very long in the sport to begin with. A lot of them have CTE, which is where the whole CTE thing came from.
Okay.
What specifically do you find brutal about the sport? And do you think boxing is brutal?
Yes.
Okay, you think boxing is brutal?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think MMA is more brutal than boxing?
I would say yeah.
Okay. For what reason?
You don't see people lose chunks of their lips in boxing.
Okay, that is a good point. So I actually did a presentation in college on this.
Ooh.
So what I did was, this is back before MMA was very popular.
Okay.
So it was popular, but not popular like it is now. It was like 2008. So I basically talked about how boxing is like socially acceptable in today's world and MMA is not. And I went over the rules of why it was safer.
Okay.
Okay. So in boxing, they have standing 8 count rule, and you can get knocked down 3 times in a round. The 4th time the fight is called. In MMA, as soon as somebody's not intelligently defending themselves, it's stopped. So right there, off the bat, and that's a major reason why, according to the rules, comparing to one another, MMA is safer. 4-ounce gloves versus 10-ounce gloves, or 12-ounce gloves, or 15-ounce gloves. I was saying that the reason why they originally put in place was because to protect the hand, so you didn't break your hand. But in reality, all protection does is allow you to take heavier shots without getting knocked out, but it's actually more damaging in the long run. So that's the reason why football, in my opinion, today is more dangerous than it's ever been, because the equipment is made so well, but your brain is still sloshing around.
That's true. That's very true.
In the head. So it's the same. I was comparing it to like a boxing glove or wrapping a pillow around your hand. If you punch somebody in the head with a pillow around your hand, you're probably not going to be able to knock them out, but their brain is still sloshing around their head. But if you hit somebody with a closed fist with a little piece of leather over your hand, there's a good chance you're going to knock them out, but then they're not going to get hit 100 times.
Yeah.
So there's a difference in like accumulated strikes versus one big strike. So the brutality in football, if you're okay with the brutality in football, is guys taking very hard shots that don't really knock them out that often, but they're taking hundreds of them a day. As opposed to MMA, where you're taking a lot of strikes with not a lot of padding at all, but you're taking fewer of them and only every couple months.
That's true, but I'm not looking at the overall damage longevity specifically.
Okay.
I'm talking about like, yeah, football players get hurt, but when they get hurt, they get taken off the field.
Oh, you're talking about gore.
I'm talking about gore. We
Okay.
literally just watched a fight where one guy, his eye was so bad, it was basically shut. We saw another guy who we couldn't decide if his jaw was broken or not, and we had to continue watching the fight.
That one's a hard one to defend because that isn't like it's boring to me. That's not I don't understand what the ground game is. It's stupid or it's too complicated. That is almost like people that don't like horror movies.
Yeah.
It's almost like that's a pure not preference, but it's that's something I don't think I could change somebody's mind on. I don't think that that's like something where like if I don't understand hockey and I don't like it because I don't understand it. I don't understand what's going on. But if somebody sat me down and explained to me the rules, I'd probably enjoy it more. I might not become a fanatic about it, but because I understand it more, I would. But I think with something like that, like with gore, I don't know if you can change somebody's mind with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's gonna go the way I intended.
No. I will say though that I'll bring up some of the common ones that people don't like with MMA. Number one is that it's too violent, which I think a lot of people say that it's too violent, not gory.
I would put that in the same category. No.
No, I think gore is different than violence because a lot of sports are violent. Hockey is violent. Football is violent. It doesn't seem violent because the guys are wearing uniforms and they have helmets on, so there's an illusion of nonviolence.
See, I would say that the illusion exists in the fact that there's an alternative goal. Because like with football and hockey,
Yes.
I mean hockey, I'm going to put hockey aside because there's a long-standing tradition of hockey players getting into fights.
But painting with a broad brush, you are correct.
Yeah. So let's stick with football for the analogy just to make things simple. In football, the objective is to get the ball into the end zone. End of statement. In MMA, the goal is to hurt the person who's next to you.
It's to get them to quit, whether it be by knockout, by submission, or to win the fight via.
Either way, it's through hurting them.
Yes.
I think
you're right, though.
They're not going to quit because they're sad.
I think you're right, though, that the focus of the game has a lot to do with it because you're not worried about somebody taking damage. You're worried about whether the ball goes over the line.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. I think, though, that when people look at it at face value, the fact that, like you said, the bruising and all that stuff shows, it seems more violent. And because the end of the best ways you want to win is either by KO or submission. And they're violent acts.
Yeah.
But I think part of the reason why people look at it as so violent is because they think that they have this idea, if they don't know anything about the sport, that it's two guys that are really stupid who couldn't do anything else in life that are basically like street fighters and they're uneducated and all this stuff. And they don't see that this is something that people practice at. They don't see the skill level involved because it looks so primal.
Yeah.
That it's like, well, anybody could get into a cage and punch each other. Like I heard that a lot growing up.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And especially when you get like to the real higher echelon of like fighters, like an intelligent fighter is one of the most dangerous fighters out there. Valentina Shevchenko is prime example of that.
Yeah.
She is a fucking genius.
Yeah.
She is a terror. You do not want to stand across from that girl and have her be angry at you.
No. It's an added element that I don't think a lot of people see, and it's
like an active chess match.
Yeah, it's the ultimate chess match.
Yeah, it is the ultimate chess match.
Yeah. I think that is a real thing though, where they take it as face value, and because it is so raw, people don't want to take the time to understand it because everyone, like my mom used to not be able to watch it, but she actually sat with me a couple times, and I like explained to her what was going on. And once you kind of understand that these aren't just some thug guys like in a cage just trying to kill each other, you almost forget about that kind of like brutish mentality of it. And when you understand the rules, you accept it for what the sport is.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem as brutal.
Yeah.
Because if you go to I'm sure if you took a country where the only sport they ever knew was soccer and you showed them football, they'd be like, I don't know how you watch this. This is too brutal. Because it's guys hitting each other. Where soccer, there's no hitting.
Yeah.
So, and also too, people are used to boxing, like Western boxing.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that people are allowed to kick and people are allowed to punch people when they're on the ground is a very hard thing for people to accept.
Yeah.
That have
I can
never
see that.
watched it. That actually gets people more upset than anything else because they've been told like the whole never hit a man when he's down. That for some reason I heard that so much growing up. Like, well, they hit people when they're on the ground. It's like it's okay to hit them when they're standing up though. Like it's kind of the same thing. Let's do one more. Can you think of another example of what people hate about MMA?
It's boring.
I think that's the same thing. I think
That's that was an easy one to pull out, but that's just people not understanding the sport.
Yeah, I think that's the same thing. What would be another I used to know all of them because I used to have to defend this sport like all the time growing up because it wasn't even considered a sport.
Yeah, for a long time it was.
Yeah, nobody even said it was a sport. They said it was a spectacle.
It was legalized street fighting.
Yeah,
And for a while it kind of was. In a weird way.
In the beginning it was anything goes besides like a few rules.
Yeah. Well, at the beginning it was more like the battle of style.
Yes.
Before people really started.
It's exactly what it was. You're right.
Yeah, before people really started getting smart about it.
Yeah.
It was just like, can this Taekwondo guy,
That's a new one.
Taekwondo guy take on this wrestler who would win?
Yeah.
Like, it was more like that. But like, then it kind of became like brawl.
Well, it was the thing
It had
that
an interesting phase.
Yeah, the thing that happened, it went through a lot of phases, but I remember distinctly that the UFC would have guys who were well-spoken always go on ESPN and almost debate the guys on ESPN or at any sports network because they would always talk down about MMA. Like they would just basically be like, yeah, it's human cockfighting kind of stuff, and they would almost like throw little jabs at it. And I remember famously Joe Rogan went on there with he was debating a boxing promoter, Lou DiBella. And Rogan is very good at going back and forth with people because of his stand-up comedian history and all that. Like he doesn't mind jabbing back with people. And they were going back and forth, and they were saying the guy that was on the sports casting said, I just don't think that MMA is very exciting. I think boxing is more exciting because the guy was a boxing promoter, and he's the guy on ESPN though was saying I think boxing is more exciting. I don't think that MMA with the wrestling or the jiu-jitsu can ever compare to a Floyd Mayweather or a whatever. And Rogan was like, well, I disagree. I think it's a point of preference. He's like, if you see somebody sink in a beautiful rear naked choke or hit a beautiful double, he's like, I think that's just as exciting to me. And they were basically like, no. And then what happened was Rogan got pissed and he started chewing down boxing, and he like went on this rant about how boxing is dead. And like the only stars that you have now are the only ones that are ever going to exist. And he starts talking about how the sport of boxing is swallowing itself. Because at that time, there was Floyd Mayweather, there was Manny Pacquiao, Miguel Cotto was like kind of big, but there was only a couple boxers and nobody else. And you could tell the boxing promoter was like, no, like it was great. But I got to show you the video because it's a really good like history lesson, and it wasn't that long ago. It was like 10 years ago. But yeah, I wish we came up with different examples or a different way to do this. We might have to revisit this in the future.
We might revisit this one in the future.
So
let us know in the comments down below. Did Andy change your mind? Do you still think that MMA is stupid?
Yeah, probably. Didn't have a good rebuttal.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to all of our other MMA stuff. And we will catch you guys next time.
In my head, I'm just like, why wouldn't you watch it? That's my argument. Why wouldn't you?
Neanderthal.
Yeah.
You're listening to Bro Down Podcast all fucking day. Oh,